Good afternoon, everyone. For this week's speech assignment, we were tasked to evaluate two different approaches to solving a civic or a governmental problem. The governmental problem I chose to evaluate by using two different approaches is overcrowded prisons in the United States. Now, many of us could care less about criminals locked away in prison because, it is a prison. It's not supposed to be easy. You're not taking a vacation. You're being punished for a crime, and hopefully, you're being rehabilitated. But what about the risk it puts the staff in? What about those correction officers? It also endangers the lives of other inmates. There are some prisons with cells that were made for one individual, but now that cell has two beds in it. Something simple as not having adequate space can lead to tension, which can cause an even bigger problem with inmates. Today, I want to discuss two possible solutions that might can reduce the problem of overcrowded prisons in the United States. A survey was done in 2011 by the United States Bureau of Justice Statistics, and it was determined that the United States has over 1.6 million inmates in federal and state prisons. And here's a quick example of it. All right, quick pause. There are approximately 18 states whose prisons are not filled to capacity. The remaining states are at 100% or it exceeds its prison capacity. Today's prison is like torture when it's supposed to rehabilitate. So what are the benefits of being locked in a dark room for weeks, months, or sometimes years, which is what some inmates are subject to as a form of disciplinary action? The inmate gains nothing from this action but only making him or she worse than what they were before. Most of the time, a lot of prison brawls are the result of overcrowdedness, which leads to inmates being thrown into the hole for punishment. My first approach to reducing overcrowded prisons is releasing elderly prisoners. According to studies, after the age of 55, prisoners that are released are highly unlikely to commit new crimes, especially the elderly that are in there for petty crimes like drug use, theft, just small things like that. They should have some kind of rehabilitation program to help them get straight and overcome their, for instance, drug addictions. But there also must be a limit. I mean, just because you're 55 doesn't mean you can't go to jail. There has to be a line drawn. My second approach to reducing overcrowded prisons is flogging. Now, for those of you who don't know what flogging is, flogging is a form of punishment by way of lashing, whipping, caning, etc. I know flogging is a terrible symbol of slavery and it has cast a dark cloud over this country, but I think this would be a solution to our problem with overcrowded prisons. It also will reduce crime too. I mean, just think of it. If you were given the choice of 5 years in prison or 10 brutal lashes, which one would you choose? Which one would you take? According to a survey conducted by Roy Wamsey with the United Kingdom Home Office research dated 2009, the United States has more prisoners than any other country in the world. I mean, that's more than China, and China has more than 1 billion people more than the United States. And here's that survey. As you can see, China is not even on the graph. But why? Why do we have the most inmates in the whole world, because the prison system is weak, in my opinion, and it's a joke. I know of some inmates that have cell phones while in prison, use of the internet, I mean, gaining access to drugs. It's like a vacation at Camp Fed. I would suggest flogging as an option for drug offenders like the dealers, and make it mandatory plus jail time for serious offenders like murderers, rapists, child molesters. And if they implement a prison sentence like that, I guarantee that a person would think twice before committing a crime, knowing that if he or she gets caught and found guilty of it, the consequences of lashes and prisons, that it that time it wouldn't even be worth it. You know. So, in conclusion, I talked about today's prison systems and two approaches on how I think the government can reduce overcrowding. The two approaches I spoke about were releasing prisoners over the age of 55 years old and implementing flogging into the prison sentences. I hope I did not offend anyone with this topic, because that was not my intentions.